regretting that, Charlie, I shouldn't have come to the school, or you should have been a day student, because this student, they don't have they don't bully them as much as we do for this. Yes.
So there were many nights that you wished you were not even in the school, at all.
Yes.
What extreme forms of bullying did you, apart from you, did you see in your school? Before we started, I was speaking to one of my colleagues here, Kelvin, and he says they can actually sleep on, was it the reservoir, for half of the night or the rest of the night till morning. How do you leave someone to sleep on a reservoir? Why? For what? What extremism did you see in your school?
When we came to the school as freshers, because the seniors were there, they were allowed to bully. So when they left in 2019, and it was like only first year students were around, the headmaster sent out a memo that no one should be bullied in the school again. So now when you get bullied, you just go and report, and they deal with the senior that bullied you.
So Samuel, who appends their signature to this form of bullying in our schools? Are you teachers? Are you very aware what's happening, and you probably just shut a blind eye because it's the culture?
Well, I must say that we have various forms of bullying that goes on in the school. Most especially the physical bullying, it gets reported because of the pain and injury it causes to students.
What would you term extreme bullying, and what would you term normal?
Well, I think some students go beating up the juniors, and I think that is to the extreme. But something like name calling, teasing, they are of the minimal level, and that can be a little bit tolerated. But not beating and all that. I think it's unacceptable.
Seth, I'm coming to you at this point because unfortunately, it's the reason we are talking about this matter this morning. A 15-year-old, unfortunately, I mean, you send your child to school, and by the time you know it, he's passed away only because of bullying through no fault of his. He was actually saving somebody else. The matter is in court. We are not dwelling on the matter this morning, but of course, we're just referring to it because of the subject matter on the table this morning. What does this form of bullying do to the psyche of a pupil as young as 12, 14, and 15 in school?
Well, thank you very much. There are different ways, really. There are positive aspects to this also. And I'd like to create a context, which is the first thing. See, when we consider bullying, we're looking for three things. Intention to harm, the repetitive nature, and the power imbalance. So without these scenarios or this criteria, we will not entirely call it bullying.
But what happens in our secondary schools are very repetitive.
To some extent. I remember my first day in St. Augustine's. I slept under the bed and my seniors basically slept on me with the mattress and everything. Guess what? I slept.
No, hold on.
And they got
Is it because you're buff?
No,
not everybody says buff.
I've just become buff.
Really? So when you were in school, you were not this way. You didn't even look half like this.
No.
And wait, no, Seth, you're trying to tell me they put a whole mattress on you.
Yes.
And they slept on you.
Yes.
And you slept.
I slept.
You didn't suffocate.
I was snoring.
You're a different human being.
You see, that infuriated them even more. And like, but we are trying to make your life terrible. And you see, at another extent,
I don't think they fully slept on you. How can you have a mattress and a human being fully sleeping on you? You tell me you slept and you were snoring.
A man with a mission who wants to sleep.
Something must kill a man.
We slept. The reality is, if you look at many of these ceremonies, as I would call it, there is one thing that it does. For example, I know Nino's night brings up a sense of togetherness that's created among the newbies.
The first year students.
Exactly, because you become you show your most vulnerable state. I agree with him when he says that the excesses of physical abuse, and of course we know that bullying is a form of abuse because somebody is trying to assert the authority over another person. So that's the most significant thing. Now, in this particular instance, if I want to open it up from a psychological perspective, the person who stabbed the other person, I'm going to look at it from the concept of an abuser. Okay. Abusers have nothing except the person they abuse. So if I am abusing you and suddenly someone comes to save you, what they have done is taking away all my power. And so that would have necessitated that reaction of excessive aggression. Now, we also do know, I have no idea whether this person was using any psychoactive substance like alcohol or marijuana, but those things tend to exacerbate anger.
Yeah.
So I don't think that it was something the person had thought about. I'm going to stab someone to death. But in the anger, they lost their sense. They lost their prefrontal cortex, which we use in executive function or thinking and reasoning and judgment. And that small device behind the brain we call the amygdala just took place. So that, I would say, is an incidence of an extreme incident which doesn't typically happen. Now, if we want to talk about bullying, as what I've explained, that these three scenarios must be present, the effects are varied. Now, some people may actually develop a lot of resilience.
Like you did.
I think so.
Yeah, because they were sleeping on you and you were snoring. And you told us that it angered them even the more.
Yes, beyond that, all the scrub the bathroom and pound the WC did nothing to me, really. Because I was quite used to it before I went there.
You used to do it
We
in
used
the
to go
house.
for camps, you know,
Good
like these
camps.
Boy Scout camps, etc., etc. And those were the things we were doing. So before I went to St. Augustine's, I would say I was fairly in that zone.
But not everybody is like you. You know, Malise is not like you.
I
Gloria
agree.
is not like you.
And I saw my colleagues who came to the school who were timid and not very outspoken. And by the time they left, they had developed more coping resources than we had anticipated. Of course, in the excesses of physical abuse, that can get problematic. Now, at a point, I was what you call a scrabash. Scrabashes were the people who gave out the jobs to juniors, okay? So as for the shouting, I wake up at 4:30.
You shout.
All Form 1 boys on the front veranda.
It was a shouting party for you.
It was nice. Because I was teaching them to get into a routine.
No, but what do you mean it was
So the
nice? It was
intent-
nice for you
Yes.
to be shouting at youngins just so they wake up.
We didn't have a microphone or a PA system to wake people up.
Okay.
So you had to do it. You understand what
I'm
I mean?
not understanding what
Well,
you
you
mean.
have to. You have a dorm of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Right.
I'm not going to go to every room and say, get up from your bed. No. You scream, Form 1 boys. And you know the interesting thing, at the point, everybody got conditioned. So around that time,
Everybody wakes even before you
Exactly.
shout.
so you suddenly have created a sense of routine.
Okay.
It wasn't intended to injure. It wasn't intended to harm. It was intended to translate specific norms that
To discipline.
you wake up in the morning, you have to clean, you have
Okay.
to learn to scrub, you have to learn to sweep.
Right.
And if you didn't do that, you were punished. That's not bullying.
Okay.
I find that lots of people tend to explain if I don't do something and I'm punished for it as bullying. I can totally understand that if you come to ask me for shito and I say I won't give you, and then you beat me, that's bullying.
Of course.
See, that one you're trying to...
And many of us went through it. They will get angry that you didn't give them the shit, and they will beat you up.
Yes. In his specific instance, what I like is it was actually bullying because, you see, bullying resides on an imbalance. And sometimes they'll pick up specific peculiarities because you were smaller, or you spoke funny, or you wore glasses, or you wore dentures, or something of that sort. And they use these things as a way of bringing you down. Now, some people who actually are able to develop that resilience, like, I don't care. The bullies typically will stop bullying you because you are not giving them that feedback they are looking for. It's an interaction, really.
But not everybody has resilience to
And
be
that's
able
what
to
we
do
need
that.
to start teaching.
Resilience. We need to start teaching
But
resilience. in school.
resilience is a skill that you build when you have gone through repeated challenges.
Okay.
But we need to teach people how to recognize these things and basically ignore the bully. The best way to get away from bullying is to ignore the bully.
You think so?
It goes beyond schools.
No matter the frequency.
It goes beyond schools. I'm talking about bullying in entirety, from the workplace to personal relationships to marriage, whatever it is. Ignoring the bully means that they are not getting the reaction they are looking for from you. See, in many cases, if I'm an abuser, I'll do something specifically so you react. And I'll base your reaction, I will now react based on your reaction and say, you made me do it.
Okay.
Because the bully is never taking responsibility for what they're doing. They're always saying that it's your fault that I had to do this because you look so small, or you wear these shoes that make you look like a pirate, or things like that. Yeah. So basically, ignoring the bully. So if you look at many of the resources, they'll tell you, walk away from the bully. Very quickly, walk
Walk away. But in our secondary schools, A senior is standing in front of you talking and you decide to walk away. That's disrespect.
But that
you will kneel down.
yes, but that
you will
might
kneel
not
in
be,
the gravels for the rest of the day.
I agree, but that might not be bullying.
But that will hurt
Senior
my
says,
knees.
go
We've
for
seen
CSR.
people's knees actually getting injured
Yes.
from kneeling on gravels.
Perfectly. So that is something the schools will have to work on for everyone.
Okay.
Because we have no control over that. If you think about it, the reality is you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing and you're punished, kneel down. But of course, the punishment may be excessive to the act that was committed.
Yeah.
And this is where teachers and other students and the institution as a whole must come into, to balance this. Yeah. So I remember in my school, they were saying things they didn't tolerate.
Okay.
Look, if you came to ask me for shito, I said, I won't give you. And you beat me up. Our headmaster at the time, his nickname was One Sacking. No, you go to DC, you say, hey, oh yeah, then, oh, why you small, but One Sacking? Because he couldn't tolerate those things. But there were other things, for example, 2 students got into a fight. What happened? Okay, they are men. Let them weed and bond together. So we have to be able to find these distinctions and identify what the bullying in itself is.
Thank you very much, Seth. Yes, I was just coming to you. Your submission before I ask you the question.
I think I agree with Doc on all that he has said. But one thing I want to say too is that sometimes this bullying don't get reported to the teachers or authorities in concern. Because most of the time when you try to report, some of the seniors will gang up against you. They try to box you in, and it will make your life very miserable.
Exactly.
So you have to develop a way of coping with it. Then you just suffer the consequences.
Malise, I see that you're nodding in the affirmative.
Yes.
Something like that happened?
Yes.
Okay. Let him finish, then
again,
you tell us.
I have experienced Form 1 student bullying another Form 1 student.
Where did he get that impetus from?
Because he came to the school earlier and the supposed victim came late, reported late to the school. So, because he had a very bigger stature, he used it to bully
the
his
newest
own
comer.
colleague.
Who was the newest comer?
Yes. And it has been going on for some time.
Malish, you wanted to say something?
Yes. You see, mobile phones are not allowed in schools.
Okay.
But the seniors, they tend
Some way, somehow, they have it.
They have it. And they charge it using the school's sockets.
Okay.
So when you see something like that and you want to go and report, you tend to be the bad one. And when they catch you,
what happens to you when they catch you?
it's either you go and for something we call polo. It's,
Polo?
Yeah, a polo.
A
That's
polo?
our term. Polo.
Polu?
It's our term.
Okay.
In
Ketas?
Yeah, in Ketas.
Secondary school, okay.
You go and fetch it. It's either you fetch it or they ask you, see, we were living in a coastal area. We are living in a coastal area.
Yes.
Or you get to kneel down. When you kneel down, the beach sand, the way it hurts your knees. So yeah, it's...
What was the extreme form of punishment in your school if you violated the rules of a supposed senior?
Okay, well, there's this thing, it's called the soccer way.
Hey, it's Polu, from Polu to soccer way, okay.
It's called the soccer way. There was a problem with the drainage system. So one of the past seniors, he actually did something bad and they punished him to dig. And when he dug, they turned it into a soccer way where the water would go
waste
to.
water, yeah.
So if you do anything to a senior, they can tell you, go and fetch 50 buckets. When you
Of
fetch
the
it, you go and
soccer
pour
way.
it in the bush and come back. It's part of the punishment. They give you
For
different
nothing,
things.
just fetch clean, clear water.
As if you disrespect a senior.
50 times.
It depends on what the senior wants.
Wow.
Yeah.
As in whatever he feels, as in when he wants or she wants. Fantastic. Now, I wanted to come to you and ask you this very important question. So the teacher associations that we have in this country, from NATS to NAGRAT and all that, has this come to your attention, and is it anything that you've ever addressed on a national level?
Well, I think over the years, it hasn't come to the front burner as it is now, that we've had somebody die as a result. So I think it's something that we need to wake up, because most of the time, we don't get to hear of it.
Because the students are timid, they are afraid to report.
The
The
only time
seniors.
you get to hear of it is when the harm has already been done. And most of the times, it's the disciplinary committee kind of thing.
Okay. Did you do it to somebody as well?
No, I was
Just
a
a
prefect,
little bit.
actually.
Hey, you were the head girl.
No, I was a house prefect.
Okay.
So I was rather in charge of making sure that the other seniors around weren't bullying the juniors, because some of them would constantly complain that Lady Gloria, this senior is doing this to me. Lady Gloria, this senior said I don't respect. Meanwhile, I just told the person my mind and all that. So when they come to me, I talk to them and I tell them that, don't worry, they'll leave very soon. And when they leave, you have your peace of mind. Because that's all you can see.
Because you just simply couldn't control your colleagues. There was nothing you could do to control whatever they wanted to do to their juniors.
Yes.
So this is a case where people have started dying. And that's what happens in Ghana. Attention is not paid to a particular matter until it starts to get worse. And in this case, it's to the extreme. Somebody's died. Seth especially and Samuel, what's the way forward for us? Do you think it's some part of this culture must be maintained still in our secondary schools, or maybe scrubbed totally, so we have a clear path on what happens between seniors and juniors in secondary schools?
See, I would say that because of the initial premise I created, these things without any intention to injure are good.
Would you allow your son to be slept on today with a mattress, the way it was done to you?
Well, no, I wouldn't like it.
So then why do you think it was okay that it was done to you?
That's what I'm saying, that it's a context I created. Now, guess what? After that act, these people became the best of friends with me.
And I told you, not everyone has your type of tenacity.
I agree. Repetition is what I'm talking about.
Okay.
That, you see, before we want to consider an act as a bully, it must be repetitive, consistently. We had people who were culprits. Every day they were in a fight, they had slapped somebody, those are the people we are looking for. I'm not going to lie and say when Form 1 boys came, I didn't try to bully some people. I say, hey, look, hang on to the wall. You are Batman, you know. And guess what? It wasn't because I was doing it to harm the person. I was doing it basically with the intention of, we're welcoming you into the fraternity.
So that's what I said, initiation, some sort of initiation.
So what we are supposed to do now is to set boundaries on what is ethical and what is not ethical.
Okay.
Because to take these things away, it's taking a chunk of that brotherhood, especially with boys.
You think so?
Exactly.
Isn't there any way of forming a brotherhood apart from these extreme forms of bullying? Hang on a wall, said it. But yeah, you're Batman. Hang on a wall.
Building, you know, I mean, that's just a joke, right? But you see, in all honesty, resilience building is one of the most significant traits that you can make anybody develop.
That I agree.
Look, recently we come to find out that among a lot of our younger generation, they have no resilience.
They don't
things tip them off, and that's why we are getting increased rates of suicide and depression and anxiety, and the list goes on. We could have been depressed then, but you kind of understood that, look, it's just a process. You'll come out of it. And if it was extreme, obviously, you have to talk about it. They're saying
1 second.
Oh, 1 second.
Well, 1 second says here.
Of blessed memory.
So, Samuel, tell me, moving forward, is it a form of initiation that you would accept, or you think it must be guided as well?
I think it's something that we can minimize to the barest level. Yes. But it's not something that we can totally take away from.
You think
our
it's not
schools.
possible?
It's not possible.
Definitely not possible.
Because I think it's a culture, something like a culture.
But if it's a culture that is not good and is actually ending people's lives, it must be halted, it must be stopped.
It must be stopped, all right. But
you don't agree?
From where I'm coming from.
As a teacher and a student?
Yes, I don't think it can be totally eradicated.
Let's keep this conversation going on.
What I would say is that in my school, for instance, we have surveillance systems. We have cameras around. So it doesn't make bullying to fester on. Because the seniors
Because you know that Big Brother is watching.
Yes. And so what I want to say is that if GES and Ministry of Education can take the initiative and put some cameras on campus and even the dorm, because most of the time the bullying takes place
in the dorms. Yeah.
So that once the seniors are aware somebody is watching them, it reduces their impact.
I believe that education is the biggest factor here.
Okay.
Making people understand what constitutes bullying
Okay.
will also prevent out of context reportage.
Reportage.
Something's happening.
Okay.
Because there are certain things we might consider it's usual
Right.
within that setting. If it's excessive, it is repetitive, if it's to injure, these
Then, of
things
course.
must be key points during student orientations.
Yeah.
And it's not just about school. It transcends to other parts of life. And you'll be interested to know that in as much as this has negative effects on the person who's being bullied, it has even far more greater effects on the person who is bullying. Because it's a behavior they come to learn and it follows through to their adult lives and causes so much chaos. So it's being able to make people understand what constitutes bullying, what doesn't constitute bullying. And many schools already have documentation on this. So
Exactly.
All right. Seth Mausi Asafo, he's a clinical psychologist. He was the last person who spoke. And seated next to his right is Gloria Jane Coleman, recently completed Armed Forces Senior High Technical. Omoloye Malis is also a student, just completed Keta Secondary School, and Samuel Abeka Amwasa is a teacher from Ewutu Winton SHS. Thank you so much for your time. Let's keep this conversation going. Let's know what you think. Something that must continue but must be regulated, or something that must be scrapped totally in our schools. Unfortunately, we couldn't open the phone lines, but perhaps another time when we have this conversation again, you can have your voices heard on the show. We are still on our agenda for the week. Price hikes, especially when it comes to food, kenke, bread, what have you. Tomatoes, onions. My colleague Bella Mundi is coming up with her market women right here on TV3 New Day. We'll be right back.